A back deck chat, I like to call these, and well, it's not a back deck chat because I would cook if I was outside. It is so hot here. I'm going to point out the obvious. Here in the Netherlands and Europe, we are getting like a pretty big heat wave. And it's the kind of day where you're just wearing your bathing suit because you feel like you're swimming everywhere you go. So welcome to my office. So I wrote down some notes because I'm working right now on a couple of different things on redoing my website and clarifying what it is I do, because I think sometimes it's not clear or it's not clear enough. And it's also like my notes and everything that I just jotted down is about trying to figure out how to relay the message and for clients to see. Oh God, I'm just turning in circles. I feel like I'm being apologetic. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the notes I've written in response to some conversations I've had with discovery call folks and some potential clients recently, and new clients as well, where I've had very similar conversations. It is no surprise to me that the common piece, hi darling, the common piece of I'm just hearing it time and again. I'm sure you're seeing it wherever you are, and I think we are, when it feels like there's a big majority of people feeling the same way. Like, is it a trend? Is it that we're all energetically plugged into the same thing? I think so. Is it also that we're in our own little silos because social media tends to just show us what it is it thinks we want to see, right? With the algorithms and everything, whatever the case may be. I think the way that I see how things are happening and why people have issues is it's a whole burden of stress. And I don't yet have content anywhere that explains what I mean by the burden of stress, except that it's woven into every class that I do. So maybe I need to do a standalone one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I want to talk, this is kind of helping me flesh out some ideas of what I mean about this. So I'm talking about one arc, like one big arc, like maybe it's one big stress burden, but lots of symptoms, but it's all the same thing. What if all of your symptoms are coming from one thing? It was so clear to me in a very particular conversation yesterday. In fact, this is why I'm doing this, was the potential new client was explaining, I had this and then I had this, and she's telling me her entire life story. She's in her late 40s. She's telling me her entire life story from when she was a kid. Which is so, I love hearing people's stories. It's my favorite thing. I was an interviewer in radio a long time ago, and it just feels like it fits the mold, and I love people so much, and I love learning about people. So it's my favorite part. But when somebody starts telling me their entire story, and then they diverge off into these different side gigs of what has been a contributor or what they've struggled with, and then they struggled with this. Oh yeah, don't forget we also struggled with this, and I've gone to people for these 3 things, but nobody knew about these 5, and a sense that they've gone to lots of different practitioners for what they feel is a lot of different symptoms that maybe are not related. But the piece that I keep having in conversation with people a lot these days is that, just a second, before you go any further, I love that you're sharing all the details. Please keep those. They are relevant. How different would your story be if you understood that it's all maybe the same thing? They're not separate things happening to you. They may feel that way, but what if they aren't? Okay. I wrote down notes because I'm so tangential thinker, and it's hard for me to stick to the script or stick to an idea. So when people come to see me, it's so clear to me that so many of us, including me, are overwhelmed these days. Like, we may feel we have all of these different issues. It could be like a histamine thing, but I had adrenal fatigue, but also I think I have an MTHFR gene mutation, and I've now heard that the COMT gene could be a contributor, but I think I can't methylate. But then also, I think I also have issues with my skin, but that's really not related at all. But also, I'm just exhausted and I can't think, and I have brain fog. Or I can't, anxiety, or right, like all of those things. So it feels like your body's falling apart, but it's kind of like fracturing off in these different directions. And so many of the people that I serve sort of have the sense that they're all trying to identify these different problems and seeing different people for the different problems. But what if these are not 12 different separate symptoms or problems rather? What if they are just 12 different expressions of the same thing? Like, we're going back to symptoms. What if your symptoms all tell the same story? They're just showing up in different areas of the body to try to give us information. And that's what I think symptoms are. I think they're information. I think they provide clues as to some of the biochemistry that's struggling. So this is one of the biggest shifts that I love working with clients, because you could see the light bulb go off when they're like, okay, I've compartmentalized, and because I think we sort of have this tendency to want to categorize things, right? Okay, I know this happens with my digestion, so I know I have these issues. I also know I have adrenals, that's a separate issue, but I know I have histamine stuff, so that's happening up here. And then I have blood sugar things I'm just figuring out, so that's happening over here. And then I have skin stuff or thyroid things, right? That they're all in their own box. But the body, you don't work in boxes. You are an entire system, and what happens, it's not like Vegas. What happens in the shoulder stays in the shoulder. What happens in the thyroid stays in the thyroid. No! What happens with blood sugars only affects my blood sugars. No! So the way that I want to try to explain this, especially for my histamine folks, okay, there's kind of 3 steps to this. The first one is I want to introduce this idea of an alarm system. So the first idea is that when there's a problem in the body, when there's some kind of biochemistry that's struggling for God knows what reason, it doesn't matter, but there's something internally, structurally, I guess, could be one, but from a biological function, something is struggling inside of the body. The body is it's always gonna be working to adapt. And in that adaptation is when some of those symptoms get sent out, because symptoms are like a flare gun. Symptoms tell us what's struggling, potentially. What piece of the entirety is struggling. So in the beginning, what happens is your body's going to start sounding the alarm with a symptom, but the longer this goes on for, you are going to start to sound alarm bells level 1. Do you know what alarm bells level 1 are? The stress response. So biochemistry, the stress response is the nervous system is triggering the pituitary, which is also in your brain, to then trigger your adrenals. So that hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals, they talk to each other. It's called the HPA axis. That turns on alarm bells level 1, and that's that stress response that happens in the body. Yeah, but Luca, if I'm not digesting, it's not, I'm not stressed out. I have a really quiet life, and I have a roof over my head. I have a steady relationship, and I've gotten rid of the toxic people in my life. All those things that we think mean stress. I don't have a stressful job. Yeah. But the biochemistry inside of the body, when we get to the level of having to turn on the first alarm bells, is the very same biochemistry as if you had a saber-toothed tiger living in your apartment. Right? Or you had a boss throwing a toaster at your head. I had a boss who once threw a toaster at my head. Let's talk about stress. That poor woman. She was very stressed out. So was I. No one wants to be on the receiving. No, she did not make contact with my head. We slammed the door shut before it could reach our head. Yes, there were 2 of us. Anyway, so your alarm bells level 1. I want you to think of alarm bells level 1. That is your HPA axis. So this is your body sounding the alarm in order to trigger some biochemistry to help you survive what it perceives as a dangerous time right now. I really love that for you. That stress response going off, that HPA axis, is only meant to be kind of a short-term thing, which is great. It's lovely, gets you out of harm's way, supposed to give you some fuel and help you decipher all of the cues from your environment in order to help you navigate getting out of that environment, because apparently right now it's dangerous for you to be where you are. That's how we've evolved. Those who did not evolve with this have not survived the saber-toothed tigers millions of years ago. Great! Now, the piece to understand about this is that every time you're triggering that stress response, and I don't know if you're paying attention to the world these days, but we seemingly are triggering through fear, through political things, through war, through the ability to actually be more cognizant of what's happening in the world, the stress of feeling like the state of the environmental things are solely upon our shoulders when the biggest perpetrators feel like they're not even being held accountable for the damage they're doing. Anyway, right? We also contribute to it. I'm not saying we're not contributing, but right, there's like so many stressors. Every time we trigger that stress response, we start to build something called your burden of stress. And that burden of stress is a term that I've coined. And what I mean by the burden of stress is stress of things you can't control, the wars in the world, cost of cell phones going up, can't lobby them by myself to try to not pay such exorbitant fees in Canada for cell phones. Emotional things, which is, anything to do with people, relationships, trauma, difficult relationships, bosses who throw toasters at your head, like whatever. But the internal stress response, whatever is driving that stress response, the more we have of that burden, that stressors going off, the more our burden of stress starts to rise. Our blood sugars are actually a part of what starts to get messed with in this. Now, it's not messed with, but it's utilized and leaned upon because our body perceives we're living through a stressful time. In the development of humans, when we lived through stressful times, many of us have a history in our genealogical way, like your ancestors, somewhere along the way, people will have had moments of famine. So part of what we've developed as this stress response in the body is to reduce our reliance on the fuel coming in, because we're going to need to save it, because apparently we're living through a lean time right now. Are we? I don't know. There's a lot of food everywhere where I am right now. It's very easy to get food compared to what my grandmother had to do to get food. So it's not actually the truth of what's going on, but our body is reacting as if that's the case. And there's a lot of reason why we do that. It's a survival mechanism. That stress response actually just helps us save our resources in order to help us live longer with less. So it downregulates our metabolism, actually, is how it does it. Part of that burden of stress rising dials down our metabolism. And when we do that, now we can conserve a little bit more energy. So what happens, that now actually a little bit sets us up to rely on the stress response to regulate our glucose in our systems. And now this is actually what keeps us locked in that burden of stress and starts to mushroom that burden of stress on its own. So it kind of self-perpetuates itself. So you've got alarm bells level 1, which is that HPA axis, your adrenals. And the more you rely on your adrenals, the more you're actually turning and dialing down on your thyroid, the more you're going to rely on your adrenals. They're only meant to be your backup generator. That's part of the issue. But what happens for the person who's had this for 10, 20, 30 years? That alarm bells is having a hard time making ends meet, and some people will start to feel adrenal fatigue. They might get brain energy, brain fog, troubles concentrating, like a bunch of different things. But if that alarm bell is having a hard time making ends meet, your body goes, oh my God, alarm bells level 1 is not working. We're going to have to ramp it up to alarm bells level 2. Do you know what alarm bells level 2 is? It's your HPA axis struggling. It's still going to work, and it's still going to do the work to try to get you through all of this, but it's going to ramp things up to what's called the PNI, which is the psychoneuroimmunology connection. Psycho means emotions. Neuro means nerves and nerve tissues, brain tissues, organs. Immunology means your immune system. Do you know what psychoneuroimmunology connection triggers? It now entrains your nervous system to be even more hyper alert in order to get you out of harm's way sooner. Fantastic. Do you see how this is a life-preserving mechanism? Also, as you trigger that psychoneuroimmunology connection, you are now entraining the nervous system and making your response to stress even keener. And the way that you feel that in the body is you are the more reactive person. You are the person where you need this much stimulus for it to trigger things. You used to have this much stimulus, I can't even get it in the frame, and now you just need this. Do you know what that entrains? Your immune system. Do you know what's a part of your immune system? Mast cells. Do you know what mast cells release? 1,200 different chemicals. Do you know what one of them is? Histamine. Do you know why? Because histamine comes in to help you during the stress response. It's the big guy you call in when there's a problem. So anybody with histamine issues is a body that doesn't feel safe. That's what I mean when I'm talking about why your body doesn't feel safe. And I hear from folks that, oh, that resonated with me. That's the actual biochemistry why. I'm not being flippant and I'm not trying to be all flower-like and trying to be poetic. It's because of that PNI going off, because alarm bells level 1 isn't working. We've had to ramp it up to level 2, which is your immune system coming in to help you. So great. Is that the case for everybody who has histamine issues? No. Is it the case for a lot of people? A lot. Is it a contributor? Unequivocally, yes. Absolutely. If you're the person where if you don't sleep well, your symptoms go up. If you're the person where you are stressed out, your symptoms go up. That is a part of what is happening. Alarm bells level 1 is not quite making ends meet anymore, and it's why we go to alarm bells level 2. There's a third person that fits this. As we hit menopause, our biochemistry shifts because of some of those changes at midlife that are not by accident and they're not wrong. But a part of what shifts is some of the work now gets that was being done by our ovaries, who are now closing up shop. That work now gets put on the adrenals. Oh, sorry, they're already doing a lot for alarm bells level 1. So if their workload now starts to get too big, they're going to have a harder time being that alarm bell level 1, which now means you're going to start getting to alarm bells level 2. It's why in perimenopause, in the age of 40 to late 40s, so many women start to see an uptick in histamine symptoms. What does it trace back to? It all traces back to this idea of the burden of stress. And it's just going up. This is where the higher your stress response is felt with littler stimulus, the more likely now you're going to entrain some histamine and mast cells into the picture potentially. The more inflammation you are likely to feel, the more sensitized and the more food sensitivities you may start to have, or sensitivities to environment, to pressure, to perfumes, to scents, to lights. I have blinds on the window right next to where my desk is, and I used to not be able to tolerate it. It used to trigger my migraines. Doesn't anymore, thank goodness. But yeah, there's so many things that get affected when this burden of stress is going off. So for those where you're dealing with chronic stuff that no one's really able to put all the pieces together and to draw. Do you remember when you were a kid and you had a bunch of dots with numbers and you had to trace them in the order and follow how it was laid out, and then you'd get an image revealed to you? This is what I feel like I do with clients. It's kind of like your histamine is not separate from the story of what's happening. Your potential blood sugar issues that are driving, or the stress response, same thing, are a part. They're like one of the dots on the roadmap of these things. Your rising cholesterol numbers are not separate from this story. Your troubles through perimenopause are not separate from this story. So your thyroid issues that have been slowly creeping up in the background are not a separate part of the story. They're all the same story, and that story is you. Cheesy as that may sound, it is all from this sense of survival. Your body's working for you. She's on Team You, and she is deeply, deeply invested in keeping you alive. So the first place that I really like to play with is introduce this idea that we're going to dismantle this war talk. We're going to dismantle war talk within ourselves. I don't come out and say that. I don't have programs or emails or anything that talks about dismantling war talk. It's just in my approach, and it's in everything that I do. And where I love for people to start is your body's not working against you. Your body is not trying to punish you. I had another client yesterday who was using the very language where I'm like, ouch, you're hurting me and you when you say the war things. Like, I don't want to share it because it's quite personal, so it's not my place to share what they said, but yeah, like I feel like my body is being punished. I feel like it's the price to pay for such and such a thing that I was doing before, and it's like, oh wow, yeah, the war talk is real, and I think it's totally a reflection of a lot of the capitalistic ways, but that's yet another tangent. I won't go down. So, okay. So the important shift to understand is that, your adrenals thing is not a separate thing. Your blood sugars is not a separate thing. Your histamine issues are not a separate thing. Your autoimmune disease is not a separate thing. Your troubles with perimenopause is not a separate thing. They're all a part of the same story. And they're just all telling us different ways that your body's burden of stress is really high and you need some help to bring it down. When your burden of stress is really high, you don't have wiggle room to deal with day-to-day stuff. It feels difficult to move through the day. When we reduce your burden of stress, we create capacity. When we create capacity, you have a little bit more wiggle room over the course of the day, and you're less likely to get off track. I got an email from a client this morning and checking in 3 months after we wrapped up our work, and I said, "How you doing?" She said, I'm actually realizing that, when I have something that's a little funky, or if I'm eating something that's a cheat, and I was like, cheat sounds like a war thing. Could you change that language? Like when you went to indulge in something that is not what you normally indulge in. What I loved is you noticed that you bounced back a lot faster. The recovery was swifter. That's what I'm looking for. That's when I'm like, check mark, you are doing the right things. Please keep doing what it is you're doing. So I think what I like to point out with clients is it takes a long time to get there, but it's an enjoyable journey through if you're open to looking at things and not being reactive. That's a deliberate choice that we need to make. That is tricky to make when our systems are so it's drilled hard into our systems that we need to react on things, because that now hijacks our glucose management systems in the body actually and keeps us locked in the burden of stress. So one of the earliest things I think can be beneficial for clients is this invitation to, when something comes up, to not jump on it right away and use it for the stress response that it is, but observe it from a little bit of a distance and go, oh, that's showing up. Oh, that's interesting. Before I decide how I'm going to react to it, I'm actually just going to let it sit and be there, and I'm going to consciously actually not react to it and see what happens. Why might this have happened? I wonder if I did this yesterday. Oh, this is happening. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, how did I do that thing yesterday? And then you go and change things, and then this thing just disappeared on its own. You didn't utilize the response right there to keep you locked in the stress response. That's actually part of what keeps us locked. We tend to keep ourselves locked. And that also is a survival mechanism, because that allows us to provide our body with a source of fuel right away. That's what the stress response does. So, I'm getting complicated. It's the same thing. We have this stress response to keep us alive. And sometimes when we've been doing it for a long time, it's the stress response itself that is now keeping us alive. And anything that a little bit challenges us to disengage with that way of being is felt as not safe to the body. So everybody shifts out of it at their own pace. I'll meet everybody where they're at. And if it appears that they're stuck in that way, and I'm like, okay, you're not going to disengage with that. That's okay. Not yet. Maybe they'll go do it on their own later. I hope I've planted a few seeds. And also, I don't have all of the answers. I think many others do. So maybe we're not a good fit here. Okay, no problem. And then we'll part ways. It's okay. Okay. So what do I mean by all this? What happens in that person who's relying on the stress response to manage their glucose levels is they have gotten themselves to a state, and not that they've done it on purpose or have been terrible people. It's not a shortcoming or something to be ashamed of. We now have, you are in the process where your body is utilizing the stress response to actually provide fuel. There's a lot of reasons why. I don't want to get inflammatory and say things here that are going to make people think that they need to drastically change what it is they're doing, because that's actually the last thing that you need to do, because that is also war talk. Anyway, I want to use this campfire analogy I use with clients a lot. Are you burning kindling or are you burning logs for your energy? Anybody who is utilizing that stress response to manage their energy in the system, in their body, are burning kindling. They're not burning logs. This is not my analogy. This was from the Real Food Gangstas, who is the first place where I saw this. And I was like, I wish I could come up with an analogy. So instead, I'm going to use that one and I'm going to name check them because it's just so brilliant. They're so good at what they do. So burning kindling versus burning logs. So what's the method of fuel for you there, pal? Are you burning kindling or are you burning logs? It's a contributor for sure, and it's also a life preserver. So is it bad? Is it good? I'm not going to judge it, and your value as a human has no tie to it. But is it working for you? It worked for you for a while. Is it still working? Oh, did you want to maybe shift some of that? I'll help you. That's what I do. That's everything. Because that's just it. When you're stuck in the kindling way of burning energy, your stress hormones are providing quick access to energy. What is the body's preferred source of fuel? Glucose. Where do we get them? Carbohydrates. Oh, I need to go on a low carb diet, Luca. No, you do not. No, you do not. And in fact, I dare say that's actually what keeps us sometimes potentially locked. And the body gets really good at using kindling. I will tell you, it's amazing, but it was only meant to be really good for short term, and long term, it is not sustainable. Very much like the Western way of being, like the capitalist things, like it's just a reflection of where we are in the timeline of humanity. So like, look at us. High five ourselves first. We're doing good work. I love us. Anyway. The work now, going forward for myself, for my clients, for moving through the world, is we have to get off of the take, mine, there's not enough of anything, which is exactly the energetic stamp of using kindling as logs. And we need to go, kindling as fuel, we need to go over to logs. There is abundance. There is enough. We do have enough. You are enough. You're not broken. It's good that you came, and thank God you showed up because we need you. That is everything that I do. And when we do this, we start less dependent on emergency responses and emergency fuel things. So this is what I focus on with clients. We build it through foundations. We do it through food. We do it through the consistency of nourishing you. We don't go through a restrictive diet protocol at all unless you are super duper reactive, or you need some sort of. No, I'm not going to say that because then the person who's got it is going to think that I'm an asshole. I will never meet anybody in an asshole way. Okay. We do it through routine. We nourish you really. Like we work at creating safety in the body. From a biochemical perspective, we use food to downregulate the war talk within your body. There's no war talk. There never was. It was all survival. So the first piece of information is that you're brilliantly designed. And I love this for you, but is the way you move through your life with the energy management system, the way it's currently set up, is it still working for you? I don't know. You can answer that question. I can't. Mine, I'm still working on it. And I think even though they're very simple ideas, they influence every system because you're a closed loop system. So when I work with clients, the work that I do is to really try to illustrate how simplifying things and just building in a consistency of rhythm over the course of the day is where we get the results that we're looking for. And it's not about the results in the end. It's actually about listening to what it is that the body's been asking through interpreting those symptoms, those love letters your body's been sending you, and then helping her write different love letters. And when she writes different love letters, does that allow you to be arriving home? Does it allow you to now see the brilliance that always was there, that you weren't failing or doing something wrong? That's what I do with clients. It's one body, one story, all the symptoms and systems you want, but it's one body, it's one story. And if you need help writing one of those chapters of your story, I'm here. Reach out. Okay, thanks for listening to my back deck check as I try to make sense of things. I'd love any feedback. Goodbye. Ding, ding.